Welcome to the show. As we all know, today is the day. We will announce 3 winners of my special holiday giveaway at the end of the show. So be sure to stick around because you definitely do not want to miss this. Today's episode is sponsored by Birch Gold. I consider the Joe Biden-Hunter Biden laptop story to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, political scandal in American history. The mainstream media, however, would dare to disagree.
I mean, you have these censorship apologists who are bordering on propagandists. I mean, you've got people who are saying, oh, you know, Twitter was just removing vulgar or explicit pictures under their policy. No, they weren't. These emails have Twitter officials talking about how they don't have evidence of hacking. They were preventing the story from being shared, not these pictures. And they ultimately said it was a mistake. But it's like an alternative universe when you go to some of these other sites. And the one thing they don't want to talk about is what's on the computer. Some of them are admitting now it's authentic, but that means the emails are authentic, which means that there was a multi-million-dollar influence peddling scheme by the Biden family. And that's the one thing that Washington does not want to discuss.
As far as the White House is concerned, move along. Nothing to see here, just old news.
My Twitter on, okay. So look, we see this as an interesting or a coincidence, if I may, that he would so haphazardly, Twitter would so haphazardly push this distraction. That is a full of old news, if you think about it. And at the same time, Twitter is facing very real and very serious questions about the rising volume of anger, hate, and anti-Semitism on their platform, and how they're letting it happen. And, you know, the president said last week, more leaders need to speak out and reject this. And it's very alarming and very dangerous.
Can you imagine if this were one of the Trump children revealed on a laptop peddling access to President Donald Trump, who's referred to as the big guy entitled to 10%? They'd run out of pitchforks when they march on Washington. Now, the computer store owner sued Twitter because Twitter said the laptop had been hacked, practically destroying this man's life. And remember when the computer store owner gave the laptop to the FBI back in 2019? 2019, nothing happened. Had he not made a copy that ultimately made its way to Rudy Giuliani, we never would have known about the laptop, let alone about its contents. Had the Twitter files not been disclosed just days ago by Elon Musk, we would never have known about the Twitter-DOJ relationship that spiked the story before the election and sought to bury the laptop story altogether forever.
And, you know, even the Elon data dump, which Matt Taibbi tweeted out, Matt Taibbi clearly also underlined the fact that within Twitter, there were claims about that hackable response. You know, they were questioning leadership. Are we sure we can say this was hacked? There's no evidence whatsoever that any government hacked any of this or any individual hacked this. Twitter is claiming that the laptop story had to be censored because it contained the hacked materials. Yet, look at the Twitter files. We know now that within hours after the story was censored, pretty much everybody at Twitter revealed that excuse was not going to hold. One former employee saying, quote, no one had the guts to reverse the decision. Did anybody from Twitter even reach out to you, John? I mean, did they ask how you got the laptop? Did anybody call you and say, give me the facts? How do we know that this was Hunter Biden's laptop, and left with you?
No, and when we went to sue Twitter, we asked for discovery, we asked for preservation of documents, and Twitter lied to us. They did not mention this involvement. So the fact that James Baker was on the payroll tells me that they probably had a back channel to the Department of Justice, if not the FBI. And that this material, the FBI was in possession of the laptop December 9th, 2019. They had all my conversations and communications. They had a copy of Hunter's signed authorization that was dated April 12th, 2019, clearly allowing me to access, not hack. Usually, if you're a hacker, you don't get permission from the owner or previous owner to access the data. So the FBI knew all the facts. James Baker's working for Twitter, I assume as a back channel, and they still decided to bury this, label it Russian disinformation, label my actions hacking, and try to sweep this under the rug.
Yeah, and let's underline that James Baker angle as well, because he was at the DOJ. He was the Department of Justice Deputy General Counsel. OK, and he's there during the Russia hoax. He's pursuing this story, a complete made up story that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians. And that blows up because everybody finally figures out that it was a total lie. He's pushed out of the DOJ. Where does he go? Twitter. And he becomes Twitter's head of security. He sends an email telling employees concerned about blocking the story to, quote, stay the course. James Baker leaves the department in May of 2018 before you actually turned over the laptop to the FBI. But this is all really interesting and important to recognize, this back channel, because now we know from sworn testimony that the FBI was having meetings with social media weekly before the 2020 election, interfering in an election to keep this Hunter Biden story and the crimes of influence peddling quiet.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning. And Elon Musk just fired Twitter's deputy general counsel and ex-FBI official, that James Baker. Joining me to discuss this, Julie Hartman, who co-hosts a podcast with Dennis Prager over at Salem. Julie, I have no idea where to start here. Let's just start with this. You take away, as I said earlier, the computer store owner making a copy of that laptop. Take away Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. Move along, nothing to see here. We never even know about what I think is the biggest political scandal in American history.
That's right. And I can't believe that people aren't thinking that it's somewhat shady that James Baker, who once was general counsel of the FBI, then worked at Twitter, and he was one of the people that said caution is warranted. There was a great article about this by Andrew McCarthy in the New York Post this past weekend. And he said, if you're looking for a smoking gun here in these Twitter files, unfortunately, you're not going to find it, because the FBI and people who are involved in that apparatus are very careful about what they say. They purposely use vague and opaque language, and they get someone like a James Baker, who maybe isn't currently under the payroll of the FBI, but was under the payroll of the FBI, to do their dirty work for them.
And Julie, only recently did CBS acknowledge that this laptop story was real. This is almost 2 years later.
I know. In this past weekend, in the New York Times business section, I was leafing through it and I thought, oh, surely they're going to talk about the Twitter files. And the entire story was about how under Elon Musk, Twitter is seeing a rise in hate speech. They did not even acknowledge the Hunter Biden laptop story or the Twitter files.
There is a woman who is a reporter with The Atlantic called Ann Applebaum. And months ago, she's at a forum and somebody raises the laptop issue. And she says, well, it doesn't matter whether it's Russian disinformation. I just don't think it's an interesting story at all, because what does it have to do with whether or not Joe Biden should be president of the United States? The fact that Joe Biden has been denying this, saying he knew nothing whatsoever about his son's overseas business dealing, tells you at least is a big deal to Joe Biden.
Yes, it is. And, you know, they also claim to care very much about national security, but they seem to yawn at the fact that our president may be compromised by Ukraine and China. They seem to yawn at the fact that Hillary Clinton did not have a secure email server. They yawn at the fact that TikTok is seizing the information of 80 million Americans. And they yawn at the fact that our southern border, since President Biden has took office, has let 5 million people come into this country who are undocumented, not to mention hundreds of millions of pounds of fentanyl. So there's a lot here that they claim that they care about, but they really don't.
Well, the Republicans are taking over the House come January, and the head of the House Oversight Committee, Representative Comer from Kentucky, says he's going to hold hearings. They're going to have subpoena power. Obviously, you can ignore a subpoena. It's been done. You can plead the fifth. What ultimately do you think is going to happen? Is anybody going to be held accountable?
Unfortunately, Larry, I have a pretty cynical view of these things. I mean, to see what happened, and it's just coming out now about the Steele dossier, how the media and everyone, I mean, from the professors to everyday voters to journalists, believe that Trump was colluding with the Russians. And then now it comes out that Hillary Clinton's campaign hired a law firm, which hired Fusion GPS, to hire Christopher Steele to plant all of this nonsense. We didn't really fully learn that until a few months ago. And now, unfortunately, Larry, it's too late for justice to be served for President Trump. So that whole story really informs my cynicism. I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think that President Biden is going to be held accountable, or Hunter Biden is going to be held accountable either.
Julie, you're too young to be this cynical, but I agree with you. This whole business about election denying. In 2016, Hillary, after she lost, she referred to Donald Trump as illegitimate, said the election had been stolen. And I saw a poll in 2018 from YouGov. 66% of Democrats believe the Russians, quote, change vote tallies, close quote, to elect Donald Trump. Now, Jay Johnson, Obama's DHS secretary, testified under oath that while the Russians tried to change vote tallies, they failed to change a single one. Yet, as I said, 66% of Democrats believe that they did. Johnson also testified that we don't know whether or not the Russian interference, and there was interference, altered the outcome of the election. We'd have to be mind readers to know that. We'd have to have a world where there was interference and one where there wasn't, and compare the two. Since we can't do that, we'd have to be mind readers, he said. However, there was a Gallup poll, Julie, 78% of Democrats believe the Russian interference, quote, altered the outcome of the election. In other words, a greater percentage of Democrats believe 2016 was stolen than Republicans who feel the same way about 2020.
There was a study that Molly Hemingway talked about in her book, Rigged, which, by the way, should be mandatory reading for anyone my age who doesn't believe that there were improprieties in the 2020 election. And she says that there was a research study of over 1,500 voters across 7 swing states, 45 Biden voters, I should say. 45% of those Biden voters did not know that there were any financial scandals involving the Biden family. And 1 in 6, Larry, of those voters said that they would have cast their vote differently had they known about the Hunter Biden story. So anyone who says that this did not matter for our election is completely wrong and is just overlooking, even, by the way, even if it didn't have even if it wouldn't have had an impact on our election, isn't it wrong to us that this company that has a monopoly over the way that the American people receive information is trying to shape our opinions and change things? Isn't that kind of assault to our autonomy?
What's this? The great Aldersky has in his baby brown libertarian fingers a pair of MYPILLOW, my slippers? Yes, I do. And they come in beautiful tan. And you know what else? They come in different style. So if you don't like this one, I can't imagine why, there's another style. And of course, different colors and different sizes, because believe it or not, some people have different foot sizes. And here is the granddaddy of them all. I'm talking about a MYPILLOW. Or is that redundant? Just call the number on your screen or go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. That's mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. There are over 100 products, you know, including the MYPILLOW 6-set towel, hand towel, and face cloth, also known as a flannel if you're in the UK watching the show. I hope you are. And don't forget the Giza Dream bed sheet. Mine, of course, is in white because I am, after all, the black face of white supremacy. What other color would I get? But you might want to get a different color because you've never been called the black face of white supremacy. And of course, bed sizes are different. Twin, king, queen, king, California king. So call the number on your screen or go to mypillow.com, promo code ELDER. I'll be right back. You know, Julian, the sad part is I think much of the country doesn't care because, after all, mission accomplished, orange man gone. I remember when Harry Reid was on the Senate floor when Mitt Romney was running in 2012, and they were scared to death that he might defeat Obama, who was seeking re-election. And Harry Reid goes on the floor of the Senate and says, the word on the street is that Mitt Romney has not paid taxes in 10 years. And then fast forward after Harry Reid is comfortably retired and Obama was reelected, Reid was asked about this by Dana Bash of CNN. And she said, you knew this was not true when you said it. Do you feel bad about that? I'm paraphrasing her. And he said, well, Romney didn't win, did he? End of quote. That's it. Mission accomplished.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, a lot of my peers in college would talk about how much they care about democracy. And I would bring up things that happened in 2020 that they would just shrug their shoulders at. I would say, well, what about what happened in Fulton County, Georgia, where they told these vote counters to go home. And then there's video evidence that after 10 p.m., all of these Democrat vote counters are literally pulling out barrels of votes and running them through the machines. Is that shady to you? Is it shady to you that in Wisconsin, the Democratic Party went to great lengths to take third-party candidates off the ballot, including Kanye West? They said that Kanye West was 14 seconds too late in filing. Is that shady to you? What about in Pennsylvania, where they also tried to block Republican poll watchers from watching the counting of the ballots? Does any of this worry you if you care so much about democracy? And the same answer that I would get is this kind of resignation, shrug of the shoulders. Well, it doesn't really matter because we got the outcome that we wanted.
Finally, Julie, as you know, in Georgia, Herschel Walker failed to defeat the incumbent Raphael Warnock. Tell me, now that the Democrat has been safely reelected, are the Georgia laws still worse than Jim Crow? They're Jim Eagle, close quote, to quote Joe Biden?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they'll stop saying all of these things. I mean, they were saying these things when President Obama was in office, and now they're still saying that racism still exists and is prevalent, and their candidate, President Biden, is in office. So you would seem to think that they would recognize their hypocrisy, but they don't seem to recognize anything, Larry. So it's funny, but not.
Julie Hartman, co-host of the podcast with Dennis Prager over at Salem Communications. Julie, thank you so much for coming on. God bless.
Thank you so much. And I also want to say I just launched my own show called Timeless with Julie Hartman that you can check out too. Had to publicize that, Larry.
Of course. Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it. And now, the wait is over. The moment we've all been waiting for. I'm going to announce my 3 winners of the Larry Elder Show Holiday Giveaway. And I want to thank the thousands of you who submitted entries into the contest. And if you don't win, don't fret. We're going to have more giveaways down the road. Here is winner number 1. Brian O'Connell. Brian O'Connell, congratulations. Now remember, I'm the one who prepared the contents of the box. So if you love what you see, credit me. If you don't, blame Biden. Here's the second winner. Liz Hall. Liz Hall. Liz, congratulations. You have now won number 2 Larry Elder's Holiday Giveaway. Remember, I prepared the contents. Here is winner number 3. Carolyn Sikowski. Carolyn Sikowski. Carolyn, congratulations. I want to congratulate all 3 winners. And remember, if you didn't win, do not fear, because we're going to have more giveaways down the road. Congratulations once again to all the winners, and everybody have a very Merry Christmas. I am Larry Elder. This has been the Larry Elder Show for Epic Times. Remember, we've got a country to save.